My plan is to inspire everybody within my circle to become the best human that they can be. Because if I can help you become a better man or a woman, then becoming a better airman is automatic. And the mission is sure to follow. And I gotta say this, airmen don't buy into the mission, they buy into the leader. Let me say that again, airmen don't buy into the mission, they buy into the leader. So who are you? They say with great power comes great responsibility. And I know every leader in the room feels this one. But I need every leader in the room to feel this next one even more. The irony of power is that the more you have, the less you need to use. The more power you have, the less power you actually need to use. That's the difference between power versus force. Managing and leading. Compliance versus commitment. Authority versus influence. Think about it. The more authority you give away, the more authority you actually gain. What ends up happening is you never have to demand anything. You just have to ask and it's done. You can have all the power in the world, but if you have to force it, you might win the battle, but you'll lose the war. And we're at a time of great consequence, so remember that. And that's why my 4 C's are centered around the power of character, compassion, credibility, and connectedness. And all 4 C's played a role in my life during my darkest time. As a tech sergeant, life was great. But as you heard, I hit rock bottom. I had been in the Air Force for 10 years. I had sustained superior performance. Professionally, I was on point, but personally, I was slacking. In April 2015, I took my written test for the promotion to Master Sergeant, and I felt good about it. So I went out that Friday night, and I celebrated. And then I got a DUI. And then my career flashed before my eyes. I thought it was over. I had nobody to blame but myself. I was down on myself. I went to jail that night. I sat up in jail all night, didn't sleep. I had every emotion, anger, disappointment, anxiety, worry. Just thought my career is probably over. First sergeant came and picked me up about 9 o'clock in the morning. But in that final hour while I sat in that jail cell, I decided that I was going to leave all those emotions in that jail cell. And I was going to bounce back. And I was going to work harder than I ever worked in my career. I decided I didn't want to let that mistake define me. And so on Monday morning, I put on my service blues and I stood in front of the commander at attention. And it was quick. I just accepted responsibility. I apologized for letting the team down, and I told him that I promised that I was going to prove that this mistake would not define me. And in that moment, that's where character showed up. I didn't know it at the time, but I was just being myself. Accountability. Thank God that I worked for a leadership team who had compassion. Because if not, I'd have been a staff sergeant the next day. But instead, they gave me a second chance. And I was so grateful for it. I tested for Master Sergeant that morning, and instead of making me a staff sergeant, they threw my Master Sergeant test out the window. And I was grateful. That was my consequences. I was ready to accept it. But why did they give me a second chance? It's because I had 10 years of sustained superior performance. That was credibility. So in that moment, character showed up, compassion showed up, and credibility showed up. And that was powerful. Now the next 365 days is where connectedness will show up. I got my license suspended. And you never really realize how much of a luxury and a privilege it is to do something so simple as drive until you can't go to the grocery store. You don't realize that living 20 minutes away actually takes you 2 hours to get to work when you're on a bicycle. And I was afraid that it was going to be tough. But I knew I had to figure it out. I knew I had to work harder than I ever had before. But it wasn't me. I couldn't have done what I've done, and I can't be here today if it weren't for my friends who was at my doorstep every single day. For 365 days in a row, people picked me up. They took me to work. They took me to the 5-6 meetings. They took me to the gym. I was actually a better airman than I was when I was left to my own devices. When I was by myself, I'd procrastinate. I'd be lazy. I'd not follow through on things I said I was going to do, but because somebody was at my door every single day, they held me to it. And so special thanks specifically to my friends during that period. Calvin, Keith, Alex, Juice, Miracle, Kiera, Pat. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So that's the power of connectedness. I never knew that I was going to need somebody until I made a mistake and I needed somebody. But maybe you won't be stupid like me. Maybe you won't make a mistake like me, but at some point in your life, you're going to need somebody. Maybe it's a loss of a loved one, something you can't control. It might have you spiral out of control. Everybody's going to hit rock bottom at some point, and when you do, you need somebody there to pick you up. Life is not a solo sport. Life is a team sport. I'm sick and tired of suicide rates, and that's all script. But seriously, get connected. Invest in friendships, because one day you're going to have to withdraw on those investments. So please, if you don't take anything else from this, get connected and stay connected. It matters. So as I enter the top 1% of the enlisted force, I have a message for the next generation. Like many of us, I'm not good at public math, but I do know that not many make it out of Compton, California into the top 1%. But you can come from a broken home, and you can make it to the top 1%. It's possible. You could be a C- student, barely graduate high school, and have teachers tell you you'll never amount to nothing, but you probably end up dead or in jail, and still make it to the top 1%. It's possible. You could be a young airman with a bad attitude, like I was, but you don't have to be that person tomorrow. Skirting lines of standards of conduct, letting your hair grow out all wild, it was me. But learn to take feedback. Look in the mirror so you can check yourself. It don't matter how much paperwork you have. Prove your worth and earn your second chance. Anything is possible. You could be that NCO who got that DUI and miss declarations multiple bases in a row. And I'm standing here in front of you as proof that anything is possible. So I'll close out with a recap of my 4 C's. As a leader, as a follower, but as a human being in general. Remember the power of character, compassion, credibility, and connectedness. You got control over every single one of those. The only C that you don't get is Compton. Because you know, they're not like us. But everything else is your choice. So I ask you, what will you do with it? I'm Chief Master Sergeant Oquendo. I'm so honored, I'm so humble, and I'm excited to work alongside each and every one of you. And I got zero doubts that together we're going to accomplish some amazing things.